The latest target of Trump's ire? South Africa. And it might not be for what you expect. Welcome to America Uncovered. I'm Chris Chappell. Stop me if you've heard this one before. Trump is fueling the white supremacist far right. Time is a flat circle. A flat, racist white circle. And guess what? So is his South African pal, Elon. And together, they're bringing apartheid back. I thought mullets were the worst thing from the 80s and 90s that was coming back in style. So why are we calling Trump a white supremacist this time? It has to do with Trump's recent executive order against South Africa, addressing what the White House calls the egregious actions of South Africa. According to Trump, South Africa is confiscating land and treating certain classes of people very badly. And it's pretty clear he's talking about white South Africans. And so Trump put a halt to U.S. aid to South Africa and is offering resettlement for white Afrikaner refugees escaping government-sponsored race-based discrimination. This is a huge blow to South Africa. The U.S. provides a ton of foreign aid, much of it going to counter HIV and AIDS and to support economic development. Adding further insult to injury, Secretary of State Marco Rubio said he wouldn't be attending the G20 summit later this month in South Africa, due to their expropriation of private property and using the G20 to promote DEI, climate change agendas, and anti-Americanism. This is historic, mostly because a politician is actually choosing not to waste taxpayer money on a trip they see as worthless. Of course, many were quick to criticize Trump, saying that he and his South African buddy Elon Musk are blindsiding South Africa, fear-mongering, and promoting misguided policy, with deep hatred that will hurt the Rainbow Nation, which, by the way, is South Africa's nickname, not a new term for the LGBTQ community. So what's really going on in South Africa? Why does Trump have so much beef against it? And was his executive order even justified? Well, it'd be easy to take one side, go all in, and get that sweet clickbait ad revenue. But someone has to be nuanced, and that's what America Uncovered is here for. To try and find the truth, not to use tribalism to fund a jet ski. The first issue is racial violence. Unfortunately, nothing new to South Africa. Many on the political right, including Musk, are concerned about anti-white violence, calling it genocide. And this concern isn't new, as it goes back to Trump's first term. Even in 2018, Trump asked his then Secretary of State Mike Pompeo to look into white farm seizures and large-scale killings of farmers. The second issue is a recent controversial land seizure law called the Expropriation Act 13 of 2024, which isn't at all racist because mistreating people for the color of their skin is totally fine as long as they're Caucasian. As Bloomberg explains, the Expropriation Act includes efforts to bring about equitable access to all South Africa's natural resources in order to redress the results of past racial discriminatory laws or practices. The owner of expropriated land must get just and equitable compensation. Essentially, the government gets to take land in the name of equity, as long as they pay an equitable amount, whatever that means. So much for truth and reconciliation. So, why was this law enacted? Well, despite making up only around 7% of the population, white South Africans own about 70% of the country's farmland. Black South Africans make up around 81% of the population, yet own just about 4% of the farmland. And I know a lot of people in America think that people who've had their ancestral land taken from them should get it back, even if they've never lived there and have to take the land from those currently living on it. And a lot of those people live in New Mexico. I don't see them packing any bags. While those stats are pretty shocking, the thing is, there's also a provision for no compensation in some instances, such as when land isn't being used and has been acquired for speculative purposes, or when the land has been abandoned. Property could also be seized if it's required on an urgent basis for public purpose or in the public interest, which I'm sure is the entire public interest, not based on race in any way. The South African government justifies this by comparing it to eminent domain, a government's power to take private property for public use with compensation, found in most countries around the world. However, people fear that the law makes it easier to racially target white people's property and just seize it. And these fears have been exacerbated by many viral things resurfacing, such as clips of white South African farmers getting attacked and black South African politicians talking of violence against Boers or white farmers, and even political posters that display things like "honeymoon is over for white people in South Africa" and "a revolutionary must become a cold killing machine motivated by pure hate." But I'm sure it's not as bad as it sounds.
Shoot to kill, Gamaza, kill the poor, the farmer, kill the poor, the farmer. Must never be scared to kill. A revolution demands that at some point there must be killing, because the killing is part of a revolutionary act.
If all of us will kill 5 white people, we'll kill their children, we'll kill their women, we'll kill anything.
See, totally not racist. When the clips circulated a few years ago and resurfaced more recently, many, like the New York Times, cited people who say calls for anti-white violence shouldn't be taken literally, and that those doing the calls don't intend it to mean any harm. Sure, some South African politicians are scapegoating white landowners, but that's a far cry from being forced to flee. See, everything's totally fine for white people in South Africa. However, not everyone who's critical of the treatment of white people in South Africa are on board with Trump's sanctions. The head of South Africa's Solidarity Movement says we did not and will not ask for sanctions against South Africa, or that funds for vulnerable people be cut off by the U.S. government. Additionally, many white South Africans turned down Trump's refugee offer, citing love and commitment to their homeland. Also, given how the news portrays Trump, they might be afraid as immigrants that this is a trap and they'll all fall through a trap door into a cage or something. But there were other reasons behind Trump's executive order. Despite being a major U.S. foreign aid recipient and trading partner, Trump accuses South Africa of working against American interests. Trump's executive order cites South Africa's campaign against U.S. ally Israel, accusing it of committing genocide. Because inciting violence against a group of people and driving them out of their homes is wrong, since they're not white. Trump's order also accuses South Africa of growing ties with Iran. South Africa and Iran have been expanding cooperation in business and commerce, science and technology, and even military and defense. There's even concerns about nuclear arrangements between the two. They're like 2 peas in a pod in a nuclear fallout bunker. South Africa has been a cornerstone of Iran's efforts to strengthen ties with the global South. It's even advocated for Iranian interests at the UN, siding with Iran on critical issues at the UN Security Council and the International Atomic Agency, which would be like vouching for Drake being a great babysitter. Team Kendrick. Speaking of beefs, given Trump's personal beef with Iran, it's easy to see why Trump doesn't like South Africa getting cozy with them. Trump doesn't appreciate people wanting to make attempts on his life, for some reason. That's not just South Africa's ties with Iran that concerns Trump. South Africa is also getting cozy with Russia and China. South Africa hosted joint maritime exercises with China and Russia. South Africa was criticized for abstaining from condemning Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and has been accused of supplying arms to Russia. But wait, if Trump were really a Russian asset, wouldn't he be happy they're doing this? It's almost as if the media is more interested in narratives than in reality. Oh man, I bet they have so many jet skis. As for China, South Africa is one of its space partners. China also happens to be South Africa's largest trading partner, which gives China a lot of leverage to, say, pressure South Africa to not give visas to the Dalai Lama, or to tell Taiwan's de facto embassy to move from the capital. And South Africa, Russia, and China, along with Iran, are most of BRICS. Trump is threatening 100% tariffs on BRICS if it dares to play games in trying to undermine the US dollar. The penny, sure, but not the dollar. When you take all that into consideration, it makes sense why some people would question giving aid to South Africa. But will withdrawing money for things like AIDS prevention get South Africa on board with the US? And this ties into the bigger issues going on right now with Trump freezing a ton of US aid. I did a full episode on that, which you can click here to see. And this episode required a ton of research to get all that crunchy nuance I know you love, and lots of coffee. Lots of coffee. Help me and my staff get the caffeine we so desperately need by subscribing to our new premium website, AmericaUncovered.tv. To head over there, you can also click on this button that's been on screen. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. Thank you for watching America Uncovered.